The Galactic Academy of Knowledge was one of the oldest places in the universe. Beings from every corner of the galaxy came here to study science, history, and culture. Naira, a proud and intelligent alien historian, had worked there for many years. She belonged to the Shellan race stall, graceful, with blue markings on her face that shimmered in the light. She believed in facts, evidence, and logic. And more than anything, she disliked myths. Human legends, she said in class one day, are just that, stories, nothing more. They are made to make humans feel important. Many students laughed and nodded. Some of them were aliens, others were humans. But none dared to speak against her. Naira was known for being strict and very smart, except one student. His name was Liam, a quiet human cadet who always sat in the back. He raised his hand slowly. Naira gave him a short glance and allowed him to speak. With respect, Liam said calmly, not all human legends are lies. Some of them might be true. Some have been passed down from real events. Naira raised an eyebrow. Really? You want me to believe there was once a human who could stop a starship with a stare? Or disappear into thin air? Or fight alone against an army of giants? Liam didn't argue. He just smiled and said, maybe you'll see one someday. The class laughed again. Naira shook her head and moved on with her lecture. She spoke about galactic wars, ancient rulers, and other races. But something about Liam's quiet confidence stayed in her mind longer than she expected. A few days later, while Naira was enjoying a quiet drink in the Academy's garden, she received an urgent message. It was from the Outer System Patrol. One of the distant colonies had been attacked. A massive pirate fleet had arrived without warning. But before help could be sent, something strange happened. The entire pirate fleet was destroyed. Naira read the report twice. There were no survivors. Every ship was either split in half or crushed from the inside. And there were no traces of weapons, no energy readings, no signs of another fleet. Just wreckage floating in space. What did this? Naira whispered. Even more strange was what the patrol officers found on one of the ships. Burned deep into the side of a pirate vessel were two words, written in Old Earth script, the Sentinel. Naira's hands froze. The Sentinel. That name was one of the very myths she had laughed at. It was said that this being was not a normal human, but something more. Part man, part force of nature, a guardian of Earth. A warrior who only appeared when great danger came. The story said he didn't age, didn't sleep, and never lost. This is foolish, Naira said aloud. Someone is playing a trick. But deep inside, her thoughts were not calm. She remembered Liam's words, maybe you'll see one someday. The next day, she was asked to join a small investigation team to visit the wreckage in person. Naira agreed, mostly to prove it was all nonsense. She didn't believe in legends. She believed in proof. They traveled through hyperspace and reached the site. Ships floated in pieces. No fire, no heat. It was like something invisible had torn them apart. Some ships were missing entire engines. Others had collapsed inward, like crushed cans. It wasn't just destruction, it was something beyond normal war. One officer on the team joked. Maybe it really was the Sentinel, Naira didn't laugh. They collected samples, took scans, and returned to the ship. While the team worked on the data, Naira sat alone in her cabin. She opened her personal terminal and searched old human records, ones that most historians ignored. There were hundreds of tales about the Sentinel. Some were written like poems. Others were official reports, hidden by human governments. Some spoke of a man who could walk through walls. Others said he once ended a war by standing between two armies. And neither side dared to fire, and one story, the oldest one, said he would return only when the galaxy was on the edge of disaster. Naira closed the file and rubbed her temples. These are just stories, she said softly, right? But deep inside, a small doubt had begun to grow. Was it really just a story? Or had the Sentinel returned, and if so, why now? The journey back to the academy felt longer than usual. Naira sat quietly in her seat, reading the reports again and again. Every piece of data pointed to something she couldn't explain. The damage to the pirate ships wasn't from any known weapon. There were no laser burns, no missile fragments, and no energy trails. Something or someone had destroyed those ships with power that didn't match any known technology. When they arrived back at the academy, Naira headed straight to her office. She locked the door and pulled up the files again. This time she focused only on the words burned into the pirate ship, the Sentinel. She searched the galactic database, looking for anything official tied to that name. Most of the results were locked or classified. The few that weren't were old. Human stories, some written like fairy tales, others like warnings. All spoke about the same being, tall, silent, powerful, always appearing during times of great danger, and always leaving without a trace. Naira didn't want to believe it, but her instincts told her there was more. She reached out to a human contact in the Deep Archives division. His name was Marcus, an old scholar who studied lost Earth history. "You want to know about the Sentinel?" Marcus said, surprised. "Thought you didn't believe in that stuff." "I didn't," Naira replied, "but something's changed." Marcus sent her a few restricted files. They weren't official, but they came from ancient sources before humans joined the Galactic Council. One of the files showed an old video. Blurry, black and white, a battlefield filled with smoke. Soldiers running, shouting. Then everything stopped. A single figure walked through the smoke, untouched by fire or bullets. Naira leaned closer. The figure was tall, human-shaped, but something about him felt different. Not just in size, but in the way he moved, calm, powerful, and everyone around. Him had frozen, like time itself had slowed. The video ended. No one knew who recorded it or where it came from. All they knew was the title, The Sentinel at Arden's Fall. Naira sat back in her chair, her thoughts spinning. The galaxy was full of strange things, but this was starting to feel real. Too many pieces were falling into place. Later that evening, she attended a private meeting with Academy leaders. They discussed the pirate fleet's destruction, the lack of clues, and the message burned into the ship. Most of the officials shrugged it off, calling it a scare tactic. They believed the pirates fought each other or triggered their own weapons. By mistake, only Naira stayed silent. As she walked back to her quarters, she passed by the training fields. A few cadets were practicing hand-to-hand combat. Among them, Liam stood alone, hitting a wooden dummy with careful strikes. His movements were simple, but there was control in every step. Naira stopped. "Cadet Liam." He turned and nodded. "Professor, you said something a few days ago," she said. "About legends, about believing," he smiled slightly. "I remember. Do you believe the Sentinel is real?" Liam didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I don't just believe." "I know," Naira blinked. "How?" Liam paused, looked around, then said, "He saved my colony when I was a child." "No one believed." "Me. They said it was just rescue troops, but I saw him. Tall, quiet, glowing eyes. He didn't speak. He just protected us. And then he vanished." Naira felt a chill. "Why didn't you ever report it? Who would listen?" Liam asked. "People laugh at legends, even smart ones like you." She didn't know what to say. The next day, another strange report arrived. A listening station on the edge of known. Space had gone silent. The last message they sent mentioned a massive shadow moving past the stars. Then nothing. Naira rushed to the command center. Dozens of researchers were trying to make sense of the signal. No one knew what the shadow was. No ship that size had ever been recorded. Some feared it was a new enemy fleet. Others thought it was a mistake. Naira didn't say what she feared. Deep inside, she wondered if the galaxy was about to face something ancient and dangerous. And maybe, just maybe, the Sentinel was not a story. He was real. And he had returned. The silence from the listening station lasted for 3 days. No messages, no signs of life, nothing. The Galactic Academy sent a patrol ship to check, but when the ship arrived, the station was gone, not damaged, not floating. Gone as if it had never been there. Naira read the report with wide eyes. The station had been surrounded by emergency beacons. All those beacons were still floating in space, blinking quietly. But in the middle, where the station should have been, there was only empty space. This isn't normal, she whispered. Others tried to explain it. Maybe a black hole had pulled the station in. Maybe it had been moved by a strong force. Maybe pirates had stolen it. But none of the theories made sense. The station was built to resist all kinds of attacks. Even the strongest known pirate weapons couldn't make it vanish like that. While the Academy debated, Nira focused on one thing, the shadow mentioned in the last message. It was large, fast, and completely silent. The file didn't say what but it passed through the system without alerting any sensors. Only one thing came to her mind. The Sentinel. She returned to the human historical archives. She searched deeper into old records that even Marcus hadn't shown her. She found something strange, a page from an old human book titled Guardians of the Void. It spoke of ancient warriors who could pass through dimensions. They didn't need ships. They didn't use weapons. They used something called presence. No one truly understood it, but when these guardians moved, machines stopped working, time slowed, and enemies fell without a fight, and one of these guardians was called the Sentinel. Nira sat still, reading the page over and over. It was just a story, but it matched what was happening. Pirates destroyed without weapons. A station vanishing without a trace. A shadow moving silently across space. She closed the file and leaned back. If this is real, she said softly, then we're not ready. Later that night, Nira couldn't sleep. She went out to the Academy's observation deck, a large, open space where students often watch the stars. It was quiet, peaceful, but Nira felt uneasy. Something in the air had changed. It felt heavier, like the sky was holding its breath. As she looked up, she saw a streak of light move across the stars. Not a ship, not a meteor, something else. It moved too smoothly. And then it stopped. Right above the Academy. Nira stared. The object hovered silently, too high to see clearly. It didn't blink, didn't move again. And yet, it was there. A shadow against the stars. The next morning, security teams were on full alert. Sensors had picked up a strange energy field. It had lasted for only 30 seconds, then it disappeared. Nothing entered or left the system. Or so the sensors said. Nira kept what she saw to herself. She had to know more. With Marcus's help, she requested access to a sealed archive deep under the Academy. It held files too old, too strange, or too dangerous to study publicly. Most people didn't even know it existed. She was granted 1 hour inside. The room was cold, filled with silent machines and dusty shelves. Digital files floated in the air, glowing gently. Nira searched using one word, Sentinel. A single result appeared. Project GHOSTLIGHT. She opened the file. It showed reports from Earth's early space age. Humans had discovered something strange in deep space. A rift, they called it. Inside the rift, ships would vanish, some never returned. Others came back with strange messages, speaking of a man who walked in the void. Scientists tried to study the rift. But one day, it closed on its own. A message appeared after that. Not from any ship, not from Earth, but from something inside the rift. I am watching. Do not follow. Nira's hands trembled. The file ended with a list of sightings times when the Sentinel appeared, always during war. Always when hope was lost. And always leaving after peace returned. Nira left the archive, her mind full of questions. Later, while walking through a quiet hallway, she saw Liam again. He stood near a display case, looking at old weapons. Liam, she called softly. He turned and gave a small smile. Do you still believe in the Sentinel? He nodded. I do. How can you be so sure? She asked. Liam looked at her for a moment, then said, Because he's here. Nira froze. Here? Liam leaned closer and whispered, He doesn't show himself to everyone. Only to those who need to know. He chooses. How do you know this? Liam simply said, Because he chose me once. Nira had no words. The stories she once laughed at were now becoming real right before her eyes. After her talk with Liam, Nira could not stop thinking. His words echoed in her mind. Because he's here. She had no proof, but deep down, something told her Liam wasn't lying. His eyes had the calm of someone who had seen something others hadn't. Naira decided she needed to find out the truth. No matter what, the next few days were quiet at the academy. Too quiet. Patrol reports slowed down. Fewer messages came from nearby systems. Many believed it was just a quiet cycle in the galaxy, but Naira didn't feel at ease. To her, it felt like something was waiting. She began searching the lower levels of the academy. Most staff never went down there. Old wings had been sealed for decades. When the new buildings were added, these old ones were locked and forgotten, but Naira had access. And she had questions. She followed old blueprints, past quiet hallways, and reached a steel door covered in dust. The security pad was broken, but her access chip still worked. With a soft beep, the door slid open. Cold air brushed her face. The hallway beyond was dark, with only emergency lights glowing faintly. Naira stepped inside, heart beating fast. What she found shocked her. The old hall led to a chamber filled with human relics, armors, weapons, and machines. Some looked like early prototypes, others seemed untouched by time. In the center of the room stood a tall glass cylinder. Inside it was a suit of armor, not any armor. It was sleek, dark gray, with glowing blue lines running across the chest and arms. It didn't match any known human military design. It looked too advanced. Too perfect. And beside it stood someone, a tall figure, standing silently in the shadows. Naira froze. He stepped forward slowly, and light touched his face. It was a man, human, with calm eyes, short dark hair, and a presence that made her heart feel heavy. Not with fear, but with awe. "Who are you?" she asked, barely able to speak. He looked at her for a long moment, then spoke, his voice calm and steady. "I am the Sentinel." Naira stepped back. Her mind spun. The stories, the myths, the files, they were true. "How?" she whispered. "How are you real?" The Sentinel walked to the glass cylinder and placed a hand on it. "I was created a long time ago," he said. "Not born like others, forged from purpose, not chance. The humans of Earth touched something powerful, something beyond science or time. They didn't know it, but their will, their courage, shaped me. Why are you here now?" she asked. "Because the galaxy is on the edge of falling again," he replied. "Something ancient stirs in the dark. It destroys without warning. It consumes without mercy, and it is coming." Naira tried to steady her voice. "Why show yourself to me?" "Because you were once blind," the Sentinel said. "But now you are ready to see?" Naira felt tears touch her eyes. She had mocked the stories, laughed at the legends. And yet, here he was, real, standing before her. "Can we stop what's coming?" she asked. "Not alone," he said, "but together, yes." He walked toward a control panel and tapped a few buttons. Lights in the chamber came on. Data screens lit up, showing star maps, movement patterns, and energy signatures from distant systems. Naira stared at the screen. Red dots moved across space, slow at first, then faster. Whatever it was spreading. And fast. "What is it?" she asked. "A force older than war," the Sentinel said. "It has no name, only hunger. Long ago it was locked away. Now it is free. Then we need to warn the galaxy." "We will," the Sentinel nodded, "but first we prepare." Naira followed him to a side room. Inside were weapons, strange in shape and design. They didn't use bullets or lasers. They hummed softly as if alive. These were made not for war, the Sentinel explained, but for balance. "We must protect, not destroy." Naira picked one up. It felt warm in her hand, as if it knew her. She looked at the Sentinel again. "What do we do next?" He turned to her, eyes steady. "We wake the others." Naira blinked. "Others?" "The..." Sentinel gave a small smile. "I am not the only legend. There are more." Naira stood in silence, trying to understand the Sentinel's words. "There are more like you?" she asked. The Sentinel nodded. "Not exactly like me, but others who were created with purpose, warriors, guardians, watchers. Long ago they were hidden across the galaxy, asleep, forgotten." "Why hidden?" she asked. "Because peace made people forget," he said. "And some feared us. They said legends were dangerous, too strong, too unknown. So the galaxy erased our stories, locked us away. Naira felt the weight of truth pressing down. All her life, she had trusted facts, laughed at myths, and taught others to do the same. But now she saw the cost of that blindness. How do we find them? She asked. They are sleeping in places where no one looks, the sentinel said. But I can feel them, like a heartbeat beneath the stars. He walked over to a panel and tapped several commands. A star map appeared. 4 bright points lit up on the screen. 4 remain, he said, scattered across forgotten places. Old ruins, sealed chambers, distant moons. And we're going to wake them? Naira asked. Yes, he said. We don't have much time. The enemy spreads faster now. Each system it takes disappears. Not just the people, everything, as if it never existed. Naira's hands tightened into fists. She couldn't just watch that happen, not anymore. Then let's start, they prepared quietly. The sentinel handed her a slim bracelet made of dark silver. This will protect you, he said. It holds a field of energy that defends against the darkness. What darkness? She asked. Not just space, he answered. But fear, doubt, the enemy feeds on it. Soon, their ship launched from a hidden hangar beneath the academy. It was old, but its surface shimmered with strange patterns, ancient human tech that no one had seen in centuries. Liam joined them, called by the sentinel. Naira was surprised, but she understood. Liam believed when others didn't. He had been chosen. Their first stop was a moon called Selron 9, long abandoned. It once held a research station built into the ice. Now it was just ruins. No lights, no signs of life. The ship landed softly. The 3 stepped out into cold wind and silence. Naira followed the sentinel through broken halls and dark tunnels. They reached a sealed door covered in frost. Behind. This, the sentinel said, sleeps one called Ember. He touched the door. Symbols glowed softly, and with a low hum, the door slid open. Inside was a chamber lit by blue crystals. In the center stood a figure female, tall, dressed in glowing armor, eyes closed. She looked like she was waiting. The sentinel walked forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. Ember, he said gently. It's time. Her eyes opened. They burned like fire. She stepped forward, looked at Naira and Liam, then nodded. Double quotes. I felt the call, she said. Her voice was calm and strong. The dark is moving. We must gather the others, the sentinel said. Together, they returned to the ship. As it rose back into space, Naira stared at Ember. She looked human, but not quite. Her movements were too smooth, her presence too strong. How long were you asleep? Naira asked. 2,000 years, Ember answered without emotion. I watched the stars change in my dreams. Naira was speechless. The second location was an asteroid, built near a dying star. There, in the heart of a massive rock, was a hidden vault. This time, the guardian they found was different, larger, stronger. Covered in heavy armor, his name was Bastion. He woke with a loud gasp, then stood tall, his body glowing with golden lines. I heard the storm return, he said. I will fight again. Naira felt a chill run down her spine. These were not just protectors, they were something beyond normal understanding. And yet, they followed the sentinel without question. The third guardian was in an underwater temple on a water planet. They had to dive deep using special suits. Naira almost gave up. The pressure and cold were nearly too much, but the sentinel guided her. Inside the temple, they found a quiet man sitting in meditation. When he opened his eyes, the water around him rippled softly. His name was Vale. The enemy rises, he said simply. I will bring the silence. With Vale now awake, 4 guardians stood beside the sentinel. Naira looked at them and felt small but not afraid. She felt honored. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Their presence spoke louder than words. As they returned to the academy, Liam looked out the window. What now? He asked. The sentinel stood beside him and said, Now we stand between the galaxy and the storm. The academy had never seen anything like it. When the sentinel and his guardians returned, word spread fast. Whispers turned into wide-eyed silence. Students paused in their training. Teachers looked out of windows in shock. 5 living legends had just walked through their halls. Naira walked beside them, heart pounding. Just weeks ago, she had stood before a class, laughing at stories about human myths. Now those myths were walking beside her, real and more powerful than anything she had imagined. Ember's steps left faint sparks on the floor. Bastion's heavy armor made the ground hum with every movement. Vale barely made a sound, but the air around him felt still and calm, and the sentinel, he carried something even deeper, like he had seen every age and remembered every sorrow. "Do we tell the council?" Naira asked the sentinel as they reached the command tower. "They wouldn't believe it," he replied. "Not yet. First, we show them." From the tower, they activated the long-range scanners. Naira stared at the screen as the data loaded. More systems had gone silent, just like the listening station. "Not attacked? Not damaged. Erased. It's spreading fast," Liam said. "Too fast," Naira added. The sentinel stepped forward. "They move through fear and shadows. They don't fight with ships. They consume with silence. Once they reach a system, they leave no trace. Then how do we stop them?" Naira asked. "We don't wait," he said. "We take the fight." To them, the Guardians stood in a circle around the map. The sentinel pointed to a dark area between sectors uncharted, always avoided. The zone was full of unstable stars and strange energy fields. Many called it cursed space. "They're coming from here," he said. "We go now. We stop them before they reach the heart of the galaxy." Naira looked at the map. "But no one returns from there." "Then we return," said Ember, her voice like fire. They left within the hour. The ship felt different now. Stronger, more alive. The Guardians didn't speak much, but they each stood with purpose. Liam checked the systems while Naira worked beside him, both feeling something heavy in the air. As they reached the edge of cursed space, everything grew quiet. The stars seemed farther. The darkness felt heavier. Even the ship's lights seemed dim. "This place feels wrong," Liam whispered. Vale nodded. "It's where fear is loudest." Suddenly, alarms beeped. Energy readings, huge ones, appeared on the screen. Something was out there. Not just one thing, many, a fleet, but not like any seen before. They weren't shaped like ships. They moved like shadows. Twisting, floating, pulsing. "They see us," Bastion said. "Let them." The sentinel replied. Outside the ship, the shadows began to surround them. The crew held their breath. The scanner blinked once, then stopped. The system had failed. The ship was alone. Then the ship shook. Not from weapons, but from something deeper, like a sound with no noise. The lights flickered. Naira grabbed the console. "They're trying to pull us apart," she shouted. "Brace," the sentinel said. He and the Guardians stood at the center of the ship. Each placed a hand on a control panel. Soft light spread from their hands, moving through the walls. The ship glowed, its skin turning bright with ancient patterns. The darkness around them pushed harder. Naira felt dizzy. Images filled her mind, memories that weren't hers. She saw planets crumble, cities vanish, people fade into dust. But then she heard a voice. "Stand." It was the sentinel. His voice echoed in her mind. Strong, calm, steady. Like a stone in a storm. She stood. And so did the ship. A bright pulse spread out from it, pushing the shadows back. They screamed not with sound, but with pressure, like the very space around them was twisting. The ship broke through the wall of darkness, heading straight toward the center of the storm. There they saw it, the source, a great black shape, larger than anything they had ever seen. It didn't move like a ship. It didn't have engines or weapons. It simply existed, like a hole in the galaxy, and it was growing. "That's it," the sentinel said. "The beginning of the end. Can we stop it?" Naira asked. The sentinel turned to her. Yes, but not with fear, not with anger. Only with truth. He stepped forward, armor glowing bright. The Guardians followed. They moved through the ship's main gate and floated into space. Naira watched them go, heart in her throat, and as the sentinel raised his hand toward the dark shape, a bright light formed in his palm. The battle was about to begin. Space had never felt so still. Naira stood at the front of the ship, Her eyes locked on the dark shape floating ahead. It wasn't just big, it felt endless. A giant shadow hanging in space, without sound, without movement, yet full of power. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't back away. Not now. Outside the ship, the sentinel and his 4 guardians floated toward the darkness. They didn't speak, they didn't slow down. They simply moved with steady, glowing steps, like stars walking through night. Naira could only watch. What are they going to do? Liam asked, his voice quiet. I don't know, Naira whispered. But they're not afraid. The dark shape started to change. It began to move, not like a living thing, but like a wave. Parts of it curled forward, trying to surround the guardians. Flashes of energy sparked from its edges. A low hum filled the ship. The sentinel raised his hand, and the light from his palm grew stronger. The glow spread to Ember, Bastion, Vale, and the 4th guardian, who had remained silent until now. Her name was Rain. A graceful figure with silver skin and eyes like starlight. Together, the 5 stood in a wide circle. The lights from their bodies connected, forming a glowing ring that pulsed with energy. The shadows tried to press in, but the light held them back. They're making a barrier, Naira said. A shield? Liam asked. No, she answered. Something more. Inside the circle, the sentinel stepped forward. His voice echoed. Across space, we are not your prey, we are not your fear. We are the voice of those who still hope. The shadow shivered. Naira felt something deep in her chest, an emotion too big to name. It wasn't just fear or awe, it was belief. Something she hadn't felt before. The stories, they weren't just tales. They were warnings, memories, pieces of a truth too powerful to be erased. The sentinel raised both arms, and a beam of white light shot from his chest, striking the center of the shadow. The darkness twisted, pushed back, screamed without sound. The other guardians added their strength. Ember's fire, Bastion's gold light, Vale's calm wave, and Rain's silver spark all joined into one great force. The shadow fought back, throwing black waves and bursts of silence toward them. But the circle held strong, inside the ship. Systems flickered but held. Liam gripped the console, eyes wide. They're winning, he said. They're holding it off, Naira replied. But it's not over yet. Then something unexpected happened. A small crack appeared in the shadow. Through that crack, Naira saw stars. Real stars. A sky behind the darkness. That's its weak spot, Naira said quickly. Right there. The sentinel heard. Even though he floated in space, he turned slightly toward the ship, as if he had heard her thoughts. Then he moved. He flew straight into the crack, his body glowing so bright it almost hurt to look at. The darkness reacted, trying to close the hole, but Ember and the others held the circle strong. Within the dark shape, the sentinel moved with purpose. Naira couldn't see what happened inside. The screen showed only flashes of light, then silence. A moment later, a wave of light burst from the shadow. It wasn't violent. It was peaceful. The darkness cracked apart, piece by piece, like ice melting under sunlight. And when it vanished completely, the space around them felt open again. Real, full of stars, sound, and life. The guardians floated back to the ship. But the sentinel was not with them. Naira ran to the airlock, watching. Where is he? Vale spoke quietly. He stayed behind. To make sure it ends? He sacrificed himself? Liam asked. Rain shook her head. No, he became part of the light. He is not gone, only waiting. Naira looked out at the empty space where the shadow once floated. So the legend continues, she whispered. The guardians returned to the ship, and they traveled back to the academy. There, the story spread quickly, not as a rumor but as truth. Holo recordings confirmed everything. Students spoke with wide eyes. Teachers stood silent. And across the galaxy, leaders listened. The legend of the Sentinel was no longer a joke. It was history. Naira stood once again before her classroom. This time, she faced a full room. Everyone sat quiet, waiting. She looked at them with soft eyes. Once, she said, I told you that human legends were just stories. I was wrong. She touched the small silver bracelet the Sentinel had given her. The sentinel was real, is real, and he taught me something. Legends are not lies. They are reminders that no matter how dark things get, someone will stand. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, a glowing figure stood in silence, watching, waiting. And when the galaxy needed him again, he would return.